So how do you start collecting? This one, the short answer to this is just you go to the shop and you start buying things. But what's the logical way of doing it? Well, it kind of depends on what you want to collect because everybody does it differently. Like of the collectors that I watch on here, I can think of like three of them that collect in vastly different ways to me, whether they care about Nintendo cardboard or Xbox stuff or just handheld stuff, or they're trying to collect everything for the PlayStation 2 or just various different subsections and things like that. It is up to you to do whatever you want to do. At the end of the day, most people when they collect are not collecting it because they're going to make content on it or because it's a business venture or anything like that. They're collecting for their own personal wants and needs. So you really can just do whatever you want. So, first of all, decide what you're going to buy. Decide what you're going to chase down. And what I do is I make a list. You probably don't need a list yet if you're just starting because the list would be massive. I have a list because there's just not really that much that I'm after these days because I kind of have most of what I want. But regardless of whether or not you have a list, you're going to want somewhere to put the stuff. It's all well and good having a collection. If you can't display it, it's not going to feel like you've got a collection because, believe it or not, the vast majority of the games that I own were games that I already owned before I officially started collecting. They were just games that I'd gotten as they came out through the years. I had literally hundreds of games before I ever was able to display them. Like I've said before in those videos where I talk about replacing sun-damaged cases, when I lived in my mum's house, my room was tiny, there wasn't anywhere to display the games, and when I put this room together, and my mother came around for the first time after we moved in and it was all finally set up, she was like, I can't believe you had all this, but it was just boxed away or hidden under the bed or on the windowsill or whatever, and it's like, yeah, it's impressive when you actually display stuff. Like, for example, even in that 6 foot by 8 foot box room that I had, all of these DVDs were in there. Over 1,000 DVDs. They were boxed up under my bed, to the point where my bed frame in that house was really, really old, and it was is it called a divan with the drawers on the bottom? I think it is. One of those drawers had broken under the weight of whatever I'd put in it, so I ripped out those drawers entirely, which basically created a cavern under the bed, which was way more space, like a few foot of space. So all of these DVDs lived under there. And it didn't really feel like I had a DVD collection as such, despite the fact that I would have by most people's standards, until I was able to bring it to this house and have somewhere to display it. And again, when it comes to displaying things, you kind of do have options in terms of do it however you want to do it. I do think that most people use Billy bookcases from IKEA because they're not that expensive and they are pretty perfect for the job, really. For some reason, they're just the right width to fit on exactly like 52 games or something like that. Like on these game shelves where they're completely full, it fits perfectly side to side without there being a gap at all or being not quite enough space. But the one thing that you might have to do is come up with a solution like this down here to bring everything forwards. Every collector I follow does something different. I think some people use like actual cable trunking, like this stuff here that I'm using for real cable purposes. But I got some wood cut from IKEA, from B&Q. I could probably find out the stats of it so that people can replicate it themselves. But I don't know if there are different Billy products that are different lengths and stuff, and therefore it wouldn't suit you guys. So I don't know if that would actually be helpful. It's just a safer bet to measure it yourself and figure out how far forward you want things to be. But without that piece of wood there at the back, you can imagine just how far back these things would actually go, and they wouldn't display as well. I think I saw somebody say that their dad's a collector, and he like just cut the actual shelf itself in half so that the full length of the shelf was that. But that seems like not the right choice, considering you've paid a decent chunk of money for these shelves. But yeah, Billy bookcases from IKEA are typically the move. I've got the half-sized one here, and then over on the other side of the room, I've got 3 full-sized ones that go nearly to the ceiling. You can get extension ones, I believe, to make them even taller, but I just use the top shelf of all of them to display like bonus stuff. So I've got my box sets up there that wouldn't necessarily have fit in neatly in the actual Billies, and then over here I use it to display the miscellaneous Nintendo stuff and the Platinum stuff. And yeah, so next up, you're going to want to choose. I mean, to be fair, as a starter collector, you can get a lot of stuff without spending a lot of money, because most stuff, depending on the platform you're collecting for, isn't that expensive. If you're going for Nintendo, you're probably going to spend more money because Nintendo stuff holds its value. Nintendo stuff doesn't get cheaper very frequently. And if you're going to be collecting really old Nintendo stuff, well, then you're looking at expensive games. But like PS3, for example, is still relatively cheap. Like there are very few PS3 games that get to that price, you know? Most PS3 games, they're not like that. They're not that many big hitters on that generation of consoles. The PS3 and the 360, I think, are quite a good place to collect for because for less than a tenner, you can get some really awesome games. Especially if your goal is more playing games than just owning a ton of games. You can play some of the best games of all time for a couple of quid. You know, you really can. PS2 is still probably a pretty good console to collect for, although the prices of some of the better games are starting to creep up, like the God of Wars and things like that. But you can definitely get tons of PS2 games without spending a lot of money as well. But a lot of the more famous stuff that you're going to want for the PS2 is starting to creep up in price. Like Simpsons Hit and Run, I think, is like £25 now. And then I suppose you kind of got to choose how you're going to buy stuff, because while I primarily shop at CEX, you do have some choices. Granted, not lots of choices. It just sort of depends what suits you. So, for example, a lot of the methods of collecting these older games don't suit me very well. Some people really like to use car boots and Facebook Marketplace and bartering and things like that, and I don't, because my sleep schedule will simply not allow me to do a car boot. If I was to go to a car boot, I will not have slept the night before. That is the only way I'm getting to a car boot at 6 in the morning. That is it. I am infinitely more likely to be awake at 6 in the morning because I haven't slept than I am to wake up at 6 in the morning. My usual sleep time is like 4 a.m, so yeah, car boots, if you want to... The thing is with a lot of this is that you are not going to be the only one going to these places and doing these things to try to do the thing that you're trying to do. There will be other collectors that are there earlier than you, that know the people who are going to have the games, that probably have a relationship to some extent with the people that are going to have the games. So as a new collector, you're going to struggle primarily getting things from there. And the reason that I really like CEX is it's so set in stone. I can look on the stock checker from my home and go, this game is there. And then I can go to the shop and buy it and not have to barter and not be concerned about the condition of the case or the game, because while people have that issue with CEX, you can just not buy it. Or if it doesn't work, you can just give it back. There's a 2-year warranty on everything. So like, if you get something, it doesn't work, you take it back. There's no bartering. You don't have that luxury if it's just some geezer off Facebook or some geezer off eBay. I like eBay for getting things that are potentially not listed on CEX, or for the occasional bargain, or for specifying things that CEX don't. So for example, for a lot of things CEX don't specify is like steelbooks. I've currently taken an interest in collecting some steelbooks, and I've been looking what steelbooks exist, and I've put in a few bids here and there, and I'm losing every single one of them. I hate eBay. But yeah. You can also use places like cash converters and charity shops, but I wouldn't... You're probably not getting your collection from these. You're just going to get lucky very infrequently from these. Again, I wouldn't use these places as a set-in-stone way of definitively finding the games that you specifically want. It's more a case of you'll walk in there not really knowing what you're going to see, except for like lots of FIFA and like sports games, and then hoping that you do see something that you want. The odds of there being specifically a game that you want, especially the further into collecting you get, in a cash converters, in a charity shop, or in like these non-dedicated game shops, is just not very high. And then finally, there is also your like privately owned retro shops. If you've got one of those near you, they're a good choice too. On the topic of displaying, by the way, a few people asked me about the black shelves that I used to front face these 9 games. They were also from IKEA, but I can't find them anymore. I searched for them yesterday to answer this in another video, but because I wanted to show you guys like the specific name, because you know everything from IKEA's got a name. But they're the shelves with this little divot in, if that's helpful. If you search floating shelf at IKEA and find the one that's this exact shape where the back is longer than the front and there's like a divot to display things here, I thought that divot would be good enough to put a game in. It's nowhere near big enough and it's too far back. It wouldn't have displayed properly. So once again, I got some blocks of wood like that to bring things further forward and have them display properly. A lot of this is self solutions. As your collection grows, especially if you're somebody that's going to be buying tons of stuff, it could make sense to create yourself a tracker so that you do know what you do and don't have. I used to do this, but my brain is pretty good at this now. I refuse to say it, but I've got a sort of brain that suits quite well to this, where I sort of just know what I don't have most of the time because of things. But it would make sense to have a spreadsheet. So, for example, years ago, when I was collecting primarily DVDs, I did have a spreadsheet because at that point, those DVDs, most of them cost 50 pence each from CX. So I'd walk into a CX and I'd come out with like 30 of them. And when that was the case, then I needed a spreadsheet to keep track of what I didn't have so that I didn't get duplicates. It might make sense that as you buy more and more stuff that you do that with your collection to stop you buying duplicates. But word of warning there, or word of advice, I suppose, is that if you are buying from CEX, you've got 48 hours to return something for any reason whatsoever. So if by chance you buy something, get home, realize you already had it, you can take it back without a reason within 48 hours. Yeah. So I hope that this was helpful to somebody. Let's move on to the next question, shall we? Do I prefer playing franchises or just standalone games? Franchises, definitely franchises. I struggle with peace a lot of the time. I always have to be thinking ahead about what's next. And sometimes it exhausts me when I'm playing single stuff because I'm constantly having to think about what's next. Whereas if I'm playing a big franchise, it's like, well, what's next is already predetermined. For example, when I go through the Yakuza games at some point soon, I will have, 10 games that I know what's next. It'll bring me a lot of comfort knowing, right, this, that, then this, then that. Whereas if I'm playing just single player stuff like I have been for the last couple of weeks while I've been waiting for Silent Hill 2 Remake and Dragon Ball to come out, it's like I'm constantly in a state of, what am I going to do? I don't know what to do next. And that part where I'm in between games and I don't know what to do with my time, that I don't like. My brain really, really struggles with not being productive. If I'm not being productive, I'm not a happy person. And yeah. Also, I know that playing games all day sounds like something not productive, but when it's your job, it is productive. You know what I mean? So I always want to be playing something. And if I'm playing primarily standalone games, then I have to, while playing one, be like, right, what am I going to play after this? What am I going to play next? Because the other thing with standalone games is they're often not very long. Like, people often underestimate how long or overestimate how long things are. For example, I played through Man-Eater the other day. That is a couple of days at max. Like, once I decided, right, I'm going to play this and actually beat it today, it's like 5 hours. So yeah, I love being in the middle of a franchise and knowing how many things are in front of me and what's next, because it sets me like a challenge or a journey or an experience to have, and it also takes up a decent chunk of time. Like, I fully expect that when I do the Yakuza games, that'll take the majority of a month, and I'm looking forward to that. I enjoy that. That's fun to me. That journey, that experience through a franchise. I love playing like 20 years worth of a franchise in a few weeks or a few days, depending on what the franchise is. It's interesting to me to see how things changed and upgraded. I played through the Ratchet and Clank games earlier this year, and I'd played through none of those in my life ever. And to me, it was really interesting to watch how the games developed from like literally 2 decades ago to 2-3 years ago when the last one came out. I love doing that in games. It's fun. I should probably make videos about that topic. They would probably do well. I see a lot of videos that are suggested to me where it's like, I played every, and then it'll be like, insert franchise here. I could do that type of video pretty frequently because I feel like that is specifically how I play games, in that I play every game from a franchise before I'm allowed to move on to the next. I did every single Spider-Man game, for example. I think there was like 13 of them. Once we get to December, I've decided that one type of video that I'm going to do is I'm going to do a like gamelog recap for the year where I talk about literally every game that I've played through this year. And as of today, which is the 5th of the 10th, 2024, I have played through, 102 games this year. That's not bad. That is pretty good. I think it's less than last year. Let me take a look. But I did have a few months this year where I was really slacking. Yeah, I did 131 last year, and the year before that was probably fewer still, at 83, yeah. 2021, I want to say, was quite a few, and 2020, because of the fact that... 2021 was only 59. What about 2020? That was lockdown year, and I wasn't yet doing social media as a job, so I probably had a lot of free time. That was 116, so yeah, lots of games. Often something that I have to do when it comes to playing through entire single player games, like not franchises, is I'll try and pre-plot single player games that I'm going to do before I even begin any of them. So last month, for example, I went through a phase where I did, I think, Deadpool, X-Men Origins Wolverine, Captain America, and what else? There was another one, I'm sure. Apparently not. But that was like, they're not part of a franchise, but they feel like they're similar enough, and they're all superhero games and like related. So that was able to bring me a little bit of like that inner peace. But yeah, for the most part, franchises over individual games as often as possible. I also hate waiting for new things to come out because I have to pre-plan my entire month around games that are releasing. Silent Hill 2 in a few days, and Dragon Ball and things like that. Also, if you guys haven't already, do be sure to subscribe and help me grow. I'd love to get that silver play button on my wall at some point for the collection. That'd be cool. Apparently a lot of you haven't already, so if you could fix that, that'd be awesome. Okay, you're on the tripod now, and anyone that watches these videos consistently knows what that means. It means that we're going to do our fitness question. I finished these Q&As with a fitness question because that was my original content niche, and it helps people who potentially need to change in some way make that change. A lot of the time, to be real with you, I'm probably going to be repeating myself through these, but because fitness is very simple, and there are set in stone circumstances in regards to gaining weight and losing weight. But if it helps even one person when I repeat myself, then that's fine with me. So if anyone's only bothered about gaming, you can probably check out now. But if not, let's stick around. So I had this question over here. I think I've got the screenshot. It's a pretty big one, but to summarize it, dude struggles to gain weight, and people don't often talking about gaining weight. And I promise you that as someone who does or did fitness for a job, this is another one we hear all the time where people think that they can't gain weight because they can eat whatever they want, and they eat whatever they want, and it never budges the scale. But the reality is that you're often eating less than you think. If you're somebody that can't gain weight, you're a skinny person trying to bulk up. I promise you that if you tracked every calorie that went into your mouth, you're eating less than you believe you are. We all know somebody like this. We all know somebody that seems skinny, that seems to eat a lot, but don't gain weight. But often the case is they'll have one big meal. They'll have one big blowout meal. Maybe you go to McDonald's with your friend and they seem to eat tons, even though they're really skinny. But then they don't eat until tomorrow. And what they do eat tomorrow wasn't that many calories. They'll go 6 hours, 8 hours with no food. And it's like, in reality, they're not eating that much. They think that they're eating a lot because they have crisps, or the food choices that they make are potentially not very good choices in terms of nutrition. So it tricks them into thinking they're eating a lot, when in reality they're probably not. Like, oh, you ate a packet of crisps and a chocolate bar today. Okay, but that's still only like 350 calories. It's still not a lot. At the end of the day, again, I'm all about data and removing emotion from these things, because that is how you get the best results. At the end of the day, if you can be emotionless when it comes to food and the number on the scale, and just want to be results driven and be moving in the right direction as soon as you possibly can, whether your goal is losing weight or gaining weight, the quickest way to achieve that is to attempt to be emotionless and just see data as numbers rather than attaching it to some sort of self-worth. That is a problem that a lot of people have, is that they'll step on the scale and then allow the number that they see on the scale to influence how they feel about themselves. If you can try to detach that part of you from that and just take that as data to influence your decision making in what you're going to do with the amount of food you put in your body or the amount of movement you're going to do, because you have a goal at large that you wish to achieve, that is how you're going to get there faster. So the fact of the matter is, right, that regardless of what you think you're eating, if you step on that scale and over a period of time it is not increasing, it means that you're not in a calorie surplus, and the calorie surplus means to be eating more calories than you currently require to stay the same body weight. If you are in a calorie surplus, you are gaining weight. If you are in a calorie deficit, which is the opposite, you are losing weight. And if you're not gaining weight, you're not in a surplus. If you're not losing weight, you're not in a deficit, right? So even if you think that you're eating tons of food, tons of calories, but the scale is not budging and not going upwards, the answer, and I'm sorry to tell you, is to eat more food. You just have to. 9 times out of 10, though, you're not eating as much as you think you are. You just eat infrequently, but higher calorie meals. You can eat, if you eat 1,000 calories of a takeaway of an evening, but then for the rest of the day you didn't eat much, you didn't eat any calories that day. If you eat, some of you, if you're a tall, skinny man and you're eating 2,000 calories of a takeaway of an evening, but you didn't eat for the rest of the day, then yeah, you're probably still not eating many calories and you're still not going to gain weight. There are dudes that need between 3,000 and 4,000 calories a day to gain weight. It's not fortunate if there's somebody that struggles eating that food, but it is what it is. The thing to learn here is that regardless of whether your goal is fitness, regardless of whether your goal is fat loss or gaining weight, build yourself some habits. Yeah. Build yourself some habits, allow yourself to stick to those habits, because it will make the process so much easier. Know at what times a day, based upon when you can, because everybody's life is so individual, that you're going to eat, right? Know how many calories you're going to try to eat at those windows. So, for example, here's what we would do when I used to online coach: is we take a look at somebody's overall day in terms of like work, family stuff, commitments, all that sort of thing, and be like, right, how many times a day can you feasibly eat, right? Because that's going to determine how many calories per meal you need to be looking at. If you're eating, okay, let's just for the sake of ease, let's use 2,000 calories as your daily total here. It's if you're somebody trying to gain weight, 2,000 calories is probably not cutting it for a lot of people. Especially if you're somebody struggling to gain weight, 2,000 calories is almost definitely not going to cut it. But we're just using 2,000 as the hypothetical here. Apply the logic regardless of what the number is, right? If you want to eat 4 times a day and you are eating 2,000 calories, that means that you really need to be eating at least 500 calories per one of those meals, right? Now it's just a case of making sure that those 4 times a day the meals go in. 500 calories 4 times a day is not difficult to do, really, at all. You could do well beyond that. And then if you've got to take it to 2,500, well, now you've got an extra 500 calories to play with across a day, but you're still only eating 4 times a day, so you could split up. You just got to split up that 500 calories amongst 4, which is now what, 125 calories each extra. That's nothing. It's about making good food choices in terms of the calories as well. Like, a lot of people's first thought when it comes to bulking and struggling to gain weight is, right, what crap can I eat because it's high calorie? Don't do that, because food quality will still play a part in how you look at the end of the day, and especially, or even more so, how you feel. If you feel awful, it's not going to matter how you look. Trust me, you're not. Yeah, this is why people tell you to prioritize healthier, nutritious foods. The problem is that healthier, nutritious foods are often harder to eat more of, which is why they're difficult when it comes to gaining weight. But in that case, just make higher calorie food choices. For example, all different meat that we might eat has different variations with higher calories in, because they just are determined by the amount of fat that was removed from the meat prior to you purchasing it. If you're somebody trying to gain weight and you're struggling, stop eating chicken breast. Eat some chicken thigh. You can eat bone-in, skin-on chicken thigh for an even higher boost in calories. And the good thing is it tastes better too. If you're somebody that, the same thing goes with meat, beef mince and things like that. There's no need to eat 3% fat beef mince if you're bulking, because you can get away with more. What you're trying to do here is you're trying to find ways to eat the same amount of food in terms of what you're putting into your mouth, but the amount of calories be higher. People are very quick to do the inverse of this when it comes to dieting. People are very quick to make the lower calorie snack alternatives and switch things out, but they're not quick to do it on the way back up. Eat thicker bread. Thicker bread is one quick way to double your calories straight away. There are so many little things that you can do to quickly get a big hit of calories as well that people underestimate. Cereal is a bodybuilder's best friend, and I realise that you're not bodybuilders, but trust me, bodybuilders have to eat so many thousands of calories that we can look at them and apply the phrase, success leaves clues, because I love that phrase. Success leaves clues, right? And when people who have to eat a lot of calories are consistently doing things, pay attention to them. So what do bodybuilders do? Bodybuilders love cereal. Trust me, a bodybuilder will sit there with a bowl of Cocoa Pops, because how quickly can you eat some cereal? Let's be real here, everybody loves cereal, and cereal is one of the easiest things to wolf down a ton of calories for. Really, really quickly. You could blow out a 500 calorie bowl of cereal in like a few minutes if you really wanted to. Sandwiches. You can make sandwiches so high calorie so fast. Wraps. Wraps are merely a vessel for protein a lot of the time. You can put nearly anything you like in a wrap and shove it in your mouth in a few bites, and very quickly you could have had a 600 calorie wrap. Throw some sauce in there, throw some fattier cuts of meat in there, like something I used to like to do. Hang on. I just had a bit of a sneezing fit off camera. I managed to pause it before I started. I used to love, you could make your own, like, we would call them like cheeseburger style wraps, where we'd cook off some mince in a pan, make like a cheeseburger style cheese sauce with like high protein cheese. And this is the good thing is if you're bulking, you don't even have to use the high protein cheese. You can use the fattier cheese that tastes better. And then you've got this beef mince with like a cheese sauce swimming in it. Put that into a wrap. A few bites and that's gone, and that was 800 calories. You've only got to do this a few times a day. I promise you that gaining weight doesn't have to be that hard. You just have to find ways to eat the higher calorie foods that you enjoy and at specific times of day without missing them. Because 9 times out of 10, that's the case, is that you're just not eating as frequently as you think you are. The things that you're eating might be decently high calorie. but the frequency at which you're eating them is fewer and far between than you think. Or you think that because you have a few takeaways a week that you're not gaining, that you should be gaining weight, but you're not, because in between those takeaways, what are you eating? A lot of the times the answer is not a lot. A lot of people, the first question most people who do fitness for a job is, when somebody tells them they can't gain weight or they can't lose weight, or what their question should be is, how many calories are you currently eating? Because 9 times out of 10, people can't answer that question. If you're somebody trying to gain weight or lose weight and I ask you how many calories are you eating, a lot of people aren't even tracking yet. And that's step one. Step one is find out what you're currently eating, because if you can't answer that, then you can't make decisions. Because again, we make decisions based off the data in front of us. If body weight doesn't move up, calories have to increase. Simple. Just very simple. But how can we increase calories if we don't know how many calories we were currently eating? So first step is start tracking your calories, figure out how much you're actually eating. Then eat more. Burgers. Burgers are great. Burgers are a great source of protein. Burgers are a great source of calories. The bun that you put I'm sneezing again. The bun that you put a burger on can easily be 300 calories itself. Then you can put another 300 calories worth of meat on there. Now we're at 600 calories for the burger. Then you can put another 100 calories worth of sauce and maybe another 100 calories worth of cheese. Now you've very easily got an 800 calorie burger. Then you've got your carbs on the side, and your carb choice is up to you. It could be rice, it could be pasta if you're weird and have pasta and burgers. It could be chips. Either way, you could easily have another 300 calories worth of carbs next to your 800 calorie burger, and now you've got an 1100 calorie meal with sufficiently high protein, fats, and carbs. Perfect. When you're bulking, you have a lot more wiggle room to make the choices that people who are dieting just don't, because you can have those higher calorie things that help bulk out your meals without it feeling like you're eating much food. Like, if 2 people are eating a burger, realistically, it feels like the same amount of food, regardless of the dude who's got the burger with the extra sauce and extra layer of cheese and the bacon on it versus the guy that's just got the bread, the patty, a low calorie slice of cheese, and like some low fat sauce. It still feels like the same amount of food going in, but his can be a third the calories of yours because you've got wiggle room to put extra stuff on your burger. You could put an extra 200 calories worth of bacon on that burger pretty easily. Just throw a couple of bacon medallions on there and there's some extra protein. They don't even have to be bacon medallions because you're bulking and struggling to put on weight. You can leave the fat on them. Do you see what I mean? Pasta is a brilliant choice for bulking because the only thing that stops bodybuilders eating pasta as their primary carb source is digestion. A lot of the problem, right, is bodybuilders, when they're eating like 4,000 or 5,000 calories a day, their food choices are not necessarily driven by what they enjoy the most, but it's by what digests the most, because they've got to eat again sooner, because they're aware that if they eat something and they struggle to digest it quickly enough, the next time they need to eat is then being impacted. Does that make sense? So when you see bodybuilders eating rice all the time, it's not because you can't eat pasta and pasta tastes nicer. It's because they need to eat again in 3 hours because they've got such an amount of calories to eat. And that rice will digest quicker, leaving space for them to get to their next meal. Whereas you guys that are just eating a normal amount of times per day don't need to be too concerned with that. I can just make the higher calorie choice. You can eat the pasta. You can smother it in some sauce. There are so many choices that you guys can make when it comes to gaining weight. So yeah, I hope this was helpful and motivational, but trust me, you never want to take the I can't approach. Never. Why can't you? Someone else did. What's different about you that says you can't? Whether your goal is fat loss or weight gain, why can't you? The only person making the decision and the excuse at the end of the day, that you can't do something is you. People will look to blame things that are out of their control. Another motto in life that I've had through a lot of the things that I've done and been through is try not to worry about things that are outside of your control and only try to worry about things that you're actually capable of changing. Because then you can put your time where it is best spent invested, because there's no point wasting your own energy on things that you can't do anything about. Time flows incredibly quickly, and the older I get, the more that's ringing true. Like at the minute, I'm nearly 27, and it was the other day that I was 18, I swear to God. And it's like, every year is getting quicker. And a lot of you guys that watch this are older than me, so I'm sure you can echo that statement where if you're 35 watching this, I bet it feels like yesterday that you were 30, and the day before that you were 25, and the day before that you were only 18. Do you know what I mean? The time is flying regardless of how we choose to use it. That time is going to pass. And if you have got a goal, something that you want to achieve, it is up to you and only you to make the decision, to make the move, to do it. Don't ask permission from anybody else. Don't bother telling your friends who are going to try and convince you. Don't bother telling your parent if you still live at home. Just do what you want to do because you want to do it, and you can, and you have the power to make that decision and make that change because you are living your life on your terms and your rules, because why wouldn't you when you only live once? Do it. Yeah? Anyway, hope you guys like the video, and see you next time. I'm going to go try and sort out a PO box. We'll explain that later.